Okay, welcome everybody to Water Dragons 2020. This is our final heat of this year, being held virtually. We were fortunate to have our first heat back in February at the FloodX exhibition in Peterborough. That was live with real people there. It was great. But of course, then we had lockdown, and the heat after that was held virtually. And we're virtually today, but our experiences, they work really well. Our 2019 final was held virtually in March this year, and that was fantastic. So I can assure you all the competitors today are going to get a good hearing. We've got a fantastic panel of judges here to hear what you have to say. I will just mention, I think we may just have a couple of the competitors where there may just be a conflict of interest with one or two of the judges, and when that does happen, they will declare that they have an interest and they won't actually take part in that voting. But we've got a big enough team here for us to be able to accommodate that, which I'm sure you'll all understand. It's a very busy world, innovation, and I think most of the judges here are with us because they are overseeing and taking good care of innovation, helping to bring it forward in their respective businesses. So just a few rules of the competition. Presenters, you've got 8 minutes to do your presentation. I will give you a 2-minute warning before the end, and I will stop you at 8 minutes. We have to do this to be fair. So when I give you 2 minutes, please do your best to really wrap up as quick as you can. The judges will then have 8 minutes to ask questions, and I will be chairing that session and making sure the judges are able to ask their questions fairly. And also for you to give time to give an answer, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So that's probably all we need to know now. We're judging you on business case, scalability, and obviously the innovation itself and what impact it may have. And I think all of our competitors have been told that fairly clearly. So I hope you can keep that in mind in your presentations. Right, so without further ado, our first presentation is going to be from Aqualogic, and I believe is it Jonathan going to be presenting? Is that right? Can you hear me? You don't look like.
Yep.
Oh, you can. Okay.
I can hear you. Sorry, it's the old mute thing.
Yes, I was on the wrong person then. Actually, I didn't think it was. Okay, so it's all over. So if you just start to share your screen, right, the clock starts ticking now. You've got 8 minutes, so we look forward to seeing your presentation.
Okay, well, good morning. My name is Jonathan Adler, and I'm Commercial Director of Aqualogic, and I am, despite what Alistair said, a real person. At Aqualogic, we are a water conservation and demand management specialist, and our history stretches back to 1979, and we are passionate about water, as I suspect most people are here today. Today, I'm going to talk to you about virtual domestic water audits. Okay. So, as many of you will know, most, if not all, of the UK water companies have a commitment to help their customers save water. And it's generally written into their 5-year plan. And one way they do this is by contracting companies such as Aqualogic to carry out domestic water efficiency home visits. So essentially, we send our engineers into customers' homes to assess their water usage, look at their water assets, toilets, showers, taps, and so on. And wherever we can, we install water-saving devices and products such as shower heads, tap aerators, system displacement devices to make that property water efficient. And while we're there, we encourage behavioural change. We encourage change of use to assist in water saving. For example, less time in the showers, tap off when brushing the teeth, and so on. And this is all free to the customer and paid for by the water company. And for Aqualogic, this was a highly successful, large, profitable area of business. And we were carrying out literally thousands of visits a year for our various water company clients. So when lockdown hit, we had around 30 people working on water audits, which accounted for about 25% of the Aqualogic income stream. And this all went up in a puff of COVID smoke. So we had to innovate. We had to think about what we were doing. We looked at other industry areas for inspiration, We looked at doctors' surgeries carrying out examinations confidentially and securely. We looked at the courts and how the family courts were operating virtually. We looked at the banks and how they were consulting with their customers. And we actually looked internally at our own business, carrying out meetings, interviews, and so on via Teams and Zoom. And we came up with what we call the virtual domestic water audit, which is a methodology for an engineer to view a customer's property room by room using the customer's mobile device, whether it be a phone or a tablet or an iPad, look at the water assets, take flow measurements and size measurements, assess usage, offer tips and advice, encourage behavioral change without actually being there. As close as possible to the traditional version without actually being on site, with the customer being in complete control throughout the visit. So to do this, we needed a video platform that was simple to operate without the need for the customer to download software or install apps. We knew the standard platforms such as Zoom and FaceTime and Teams would not do. We needed something better. Eventually, we found a solution that passed our internal testing that was fully secure and fully compliant, and importantly, did not involve downloading any apps or software. It was simply a link to follow for the customer that self-destructed after the video call. That was the link that self-destructed, not the customer. So we trained our engineers on the new methodology. We provided all the IT kit they needed, and we were off. So what did that involve from a customer journey? Well, let me just briefly run through that with you. It all starts with the acquisition, and that might be by the water company or ourselves, and involves our own call center, either making outbound calls or taking inbound calls. Timed appointments are booked with the customer, and then a confirmation is sent out using our own Acquaint management platform, and preparation information is sent out to the customer, referring them to a website for more information and demonstration videos. So there are no surprises. The customer knows exactly what they're getting into. On the day of the call, the day of the appointment, reminders are sent out, their emails and texts, all containing that unique link. And if necessary, the engineer will make contact by phone. The customer then follows the link and starts the virtual appointment with the engineer, who will take them around the house, room by room, as they would do on a traditional visit. At the end of the appointment, the customer is given a summary of their current usage and details of what they could save in pounds and litres, and if they follow the engineer's advice and fit the recommended products. So that's not it, there's more to it. Any products that are recommended by the engineer are then dispatched to the customer free of charge, with the offer of a follow-up virtual call to assist with the fitting. And finally, a report with the relevant tips and data is then emailed to the customer. So this isn't pie in the sky. We've piloted it and we're working with it. We piloted it with 3 water companies and have achieved excellent success. From our calculated savings, the virtual audits performed as well, and in some cases better, than the traditional face-to-face visits.
You've got
70% of people taking part in the audit said they preferred the virtual experience to an engineer coming into their homes. So the virtual audit is now here to stay. It's not simply a solution to a COVID problem, but it offers real solutions to issues that have been around for years. For customers who are frightened or vulnerable, customers living in a geographically challenged area, and customers living in high crime areas. So, in summary, the virtual visit is all about customer engagement and personal involvement in the process. It relies on human interaction, not machines, websites, or apps, and it's carried out by a fully trained engineer with plumbing and field experience. It's fully secure and compliant, and Aqualogic are the originators, the pioneers, and it's absolutely unique to us. It's proven to save water and money, and it's here to stay. In 12 months' time, when water companies offer a home visit, the customer will have the choice of a face-to-face visit or a virtual visit via a video platform. The future is bright for virtual solutions, especially the virtual audit, even after the vaccine. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's super. Now, I have a slight technical challenge here because I can't see all the judges because you're all in the strip. While the so I'm just going to take a chance now, judges. Please just speak, and if I find two of you speaking together, I'll try and actually, that's better. I can see more what's going on now. Right. So, judges, all you need to do now is wave at me. So, Tim, you're the first to wave.
Okay. A question from me would be around savings and cost effectiveness. So, Jonathan, I mean, I suppose water companies who actually pay for this in order to achieve PCC reduction, will be looking at how cost effective it is over other means. So in terms of sort of pounds per litre PCC saving of doing it virtually to the traditional, in quotes, engineering kind of visit, what's the difference?
The difference is the virtual visit, and I can't give you a figure in pounds, shillings and pence, but the virtual visit is more cost effective. Predominantly because we don't have vehicles, we don't have travel, we don't have parking, and the engineers are timed for 30-minute appointments, and they're literally going from one appointment to another virtually with no travel time. So in terms of cost effectiveness, the virtual audit is ahead of the traditional solution.
And how about the effectiveness of the PCC reduction compared to a traditional solution?
Well, if you remember, I think my penultimate slide was 3 different bar charts, which showed the traditional version against 2 different pilots. In one pilot, the savings was marginally less, and the other pilot, the savings were slightly more. So it's pretty much, we believe the savings will be similar to the traditional solution.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Super. All right, Matt first. I know Steve had your hand up, but we'll go Matt next.
Okay, thanks, Alistair. Thanks, Jonathan. A quick question from me. You talked to us about the conventional audit using a qualified engineer to undertake the installations, whereas the virtual audit is reliant on the customer. So my first question is, have you had much issue with customer reliance on fitting products, and how you overcome the difference that water companies previously had between knowing that a product had been fitted and hoping that the product actually gets fitted if it's left with the customer and the fit is not observed?
That's a great question. And what we do is we are recommending to the customer a variety of products, as you've pointed out. We're then dispatching the products. We're then offering the customer a follow-up virtual call. So if they're struggling to install the products themselves, they have the opportunity at any time to see that engineer to assist them virtually install the products. But then 2 weeks later, and that's something I didn't mention in my presentation, 2 weeks later, we're doing what we call a customer service follow-up to assess our own performance, but also to assess whether the customer has fitted the products or not. So we're trying to cover all the bases that we can without actually being there. So hopefully, Matt, that sort of answers your point.
Okay, Matt?
Yes, okay, thank you. Yep.
Super. Julian, you had your hand up. Are you still interested?
Yes, thank you, Julian. So I'm interested in how this reflects on our water company CMEX. Is there a possibility that we can score from this the fact that that you're going around and not going around and give a person service, but brought this innovation to the market, CMEX?
CMEX, it's one of a great selling proposition about the system is that it will it would be beneficial to CMEX. We take a customer service score at the end of every appointment, and we ask 5 customer service questions, and the customer service overall score that we get is generally over 96%. So we know the customers love it. So therefore, when the CMEX questionnaires come out at the end of every year and the customers asked about their experience with the water company, we're pretty sure that those customers will give a very, very good response to their interaction and their engagement with that relevant water company.
Okay.
Thanks, Julian.
Jonathan, quick question from me. I'm just scanning the judges to see if anyone wants to ask one. Are there any other companies doing this, competitors? that we should
So
know?
there, Steve also, I think, had his hands up, but just in answer to that, we are the only company who are using what we'd call qualified trained engineers to go through the whole process. And that is immensely beneficial to the customer and the customer experience. One or two competitor companies are doing basic telephone calling, where they try and go through a load of questions, an online questionnaire over the phone. Whereas we're really the only ones who are actually engaging with the customer through this sort of video application, where we can see exactly what the customer's seeing. We can advise the customer what to do and so on. And we can make assumptions based on what the engineer is actually seeing in the flash.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to Steve first, Nikki, because he had his hand up first. So, Steve, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Are you targeting metered or unmetered properties in general?
Well, in a way, we're reliant on the briefing of our water company clients. Generally, they're looking at metered customers, but it's irrelevant. Assuming we get the customer to engage in the process, we can work with both metered and unmetered customers. Clearly, when we're looking at the evidential data, it's preferable to be working with metered customers. We can then assess the effectiveness of the program without having to install loggers per property.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because clearly metered customers already may have a penchant for water conservation. So is the sector penetration more likely to be more effective in the unmetered? And as I say, in which case, how would you actually validate that you're having an impact there?
By logging properties, logging the DMA, and seeing if there's a noticeable drop within the area. I'd take you up on what you said, actually, how that metered customers are engaged in the water saving process, because that's not our experience with respect. Evidence doesn't back you up on that, I'm afraid. The fact that a property is metered does not necessarily mean that the customer will be engaged in water efficiency or live in a water efficient property.
Okay. And are there any legalities associated with differentiating between customers, given that water companies have appointments and have to treat every single customer equally? So do you have to offer your service universally or not at all? Do you fall foul of any of those requirements?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. It's very similar to what the water companies are doing with the traditional face-to-face water audits, in that they're picking out either areas or a sector of their customer base, and then they're going through the acquisition strategy with that customer cell or customer block. It's exactly the same as that. So there's no difference really in terms of customer acquisition to what the water companies are currently doing.
That's super.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. That's really great, and really great to see a response to the COVID crisis and an adaptability in your organisation. That's
Thanks.
great.
Thanks, Stephen. And absolutely, you know, it was in response to the COVID crisis, but it is here to stay without doubt. Thanks, Steve.
Right. So we've got a flurry of judges. I'm going to get Nikki. Do you still want to ask a question?
Yeah, I've got two, if that's okay.
Quite quick.
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Jonathan, for your clear and comprehensive presentation. The first question I have is, have you surveyed your engineers to see how they feel about this new way of working? And if so, what was the feedback you got?
We are very concerned and keen on general well-being and mental well-being of our customers, and we customers as well, but the engineers particularly. And yes, we do monitor that, because it's quite an intense process. That these people who are doing it are literally going from half-hour call to half-hour call, and we have to ensure that they have breaks, that they have some distraction from their computer monitor, that they take their headphones off, and so on. So that's a really good point, and we're learning all the time, to be honest, and we are constantly talking to our engineers about that. We have asked the engineers whether they want to do that or whether they want to stick on traditional audits, and some do, some don't. Some who perhaps might be have vulnerable members of the family, I'm keener to go onto the virtual audit, so it benefits them because they're not going out to the wider public. Other engineers are happy to carry on and they want to be in the vehicle, they want to be going out and about. So we're fortunate enough that we can sort of give the engineers the option to decide which they want to go on. And essentially we're trying to train engineers up so they are trained in both the traditional version and the virtual version.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to call this in there. We're slightly over. Sorry, Nikki.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, yeah. And Katrina, I'm sorry you had your hand up, but so thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate it, and congratulations. We could all applaud, but thank you very much. And we now welcome our next